Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really heartwarming visual story. It's all about how a simple, kind of vulnerable request for help can spark an absolute avalanche of community support. We're going to look at a comic strip that perfectly captures the magic of just asking for what you need and the, honestly, wonderful ways our ecosystems respond. Let's get right into it.
So, have you ever asked for a small favor? Maybe just a tiny bit of help to get you through the day, only to get way more than you bargained for? We've all experienced those unintended consequences of asking for help, right? Sometimes people just over-deliver. And today we're analyzing a comic strip that captures this hilarious and uplifting phenomenon perfectly. It is a fantastic illustration of community dynamics.
Moving right along to part 1, The Lone Tree's Plea. Right off the bat, the artist sets the mood without a single word of exposition. You can clearly see the visual cues of isolation right here in the first panel. I mean, look at that droopy posture, the sad expression, and literally a wooden sign reading Lone Tree planted next to a cold, gray rock. It is completely devoid of the vibrant life you'd expect to see in a forest. It really visualizes exactly what it feels like to be, totally cut off from your community.
But then, we see this vital shift in the narrative. In the second panel, our protagonist takes a brave step, raising its bare branches with this hopeful, maybe slightly timid smile. The tree reaches out to the forest with a super simple request. Does anyone have some spare leaves for me? It's not asking for a complete overhaul, just a tiny bit of assistance. Just some spare leaves. It's a highly vulnerable moment, and it brilliantly illustrates that crucial step we all have to take sometimes, right? Swallowing our pride and just asking our environment for a hand.
Which brings us to part 2. The forest responds.
Because the second that vulnerable ask is put out into the world, the environment instantly reacts. The lush neighboring trees don't just sit there and watch passively, no. They actively shed their own leaves, letting the wind carry them directly to our lone tree. And if you look closely, you can see the smiles on those neighboring trees. They are joyfully participating in clothing our friend with a fresh canopy. It's just a beautiful picture of immediate mutual aid. All right, part 3, the unexpected makeover.
Okay, so here is where things quickly get a little out of hand, but in the absolute best way possible. Because it's not just loose leaves anymore. Whole branches are flying in. The tree goes from feeling totally isolated to admiring its luxurious new look in a vanity mirror resting on that same gray rock. I mean, it's absolutely eating up this high fashion moment as the community just continues to shower it with support.
Let's actually emphasize this transformation by looking at them together. Placing the initial sad, bare stump directly next to this fully bloomed, mirror-gazing fashionista really highlights the core joke. The contrast of this rapid transformation is stark. On the left, a depressed, isolated piece of wood. On the right, a fabulous, flourishing entity getting pelted with even more branches of support. Seeing them side by side perfectly visualizes that whole concept of getting way more than you bargained for.
Next up, part 4. A thriving new ecosystem.
So, the consequences of this makeover start to ripple out. Suddenly, a flock of birds arrives, and they are playfully baffled by this new prime real estate. Think about it. Just moments ago, this was a bare stump that offered literally zero shelter. And now, it's a massive, leafy paradise, and the local wildlife is definitely intrigued by the neighborhood upgrade.
This brings us to the final outcome. And the tree isn't just surviving anymore. It's a bustling hub of life. We've got a massive, lush green canopy that is completely full. We have 4 colorful birds now happily nesting right in the sturdy new branches. And down at the bottom, 5 incredibly happy baby saplings cheering at the roots with their little branch arms raised in the air. The lone tree is now a parent, a landlord, and the center of a thriving micro-ecosystem. Which leads us right to the grand finale of the comic. The tree, absolutely covered in foliage, hosting multiple birds, and surrounded by cheering saplings, shouts, "I asked for a few leaves, not a full makeover." This final punchline lands perfectly. It captures the joyful absurdity of a community that, well, just doesn't know when to stop giving. The tree looks almost wonderfully exasperated by the sheer volume of love and support it received, which is a really fantastic subversion of the deep sadness we saw in the very first panel. When we look at the expectation versus the reality here, the contrast is just incredible. The expectation was totally modest, getting just a few spare leaves to survive. The reality? Becoming a bustling, life-giving hub of the forest.
When we contrast the tree's modest expectation with its magnificent new reality, the heartwarming message of mutual support really shines through the humor. It shows that when a community rallies around you, they don't just help you survive, they help you thrive so much that you become a source of life for others.
So I'm going to leave you with this final thought to reflect on today. When was the last time your community surprised you by turning a small ask into a beautiful makeover? It really leaves us wondering about the power of our own networks, doesn't it? It shows how simply having the courage to ask for a little bit of help might just cultivate an entirely new ecosystem of support around us. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking for what you need and keep looking out for those around you.